3 weeks out from the midterm elections, and what happens? Pocahontas inserts herself into the campaign with proof and evidence that she is 1024th Indian. Elizabeth Warren is whiter than your average white person. Your average white person has more Indian blood than she does. You know, there was a lot of nookie going on back in those old West days, folks. And she's been out there trying to make this case that she was part minority, helped her get the gig at Harvard and so forth. Trump made a bet. I'll make you bet $1 million. Take a DNA test, and you're not. So she did, and she announced it today. She got the DNA guy, the scientist out at Stanford, to say, yep, 1024th Native American. And it couldn't be better. Jim Messina, who is a drive-by media reporter, he's a Obama campaign, well, they're all drive-by reporters. Messina was the Obama campaign manager. And he said in his tweet, argue the substance all you want, but why 22 days before a crucial election where we must win the House and Senate to save America, why did Senator Warren have to do her announcement now? Why can't Democrats ever stay focused? I figured if the Democrats are upset that Pocahontas went out there and is trying to steal the news cycle, then who are we to deny her the opportunity? And that's why I'm leading with the story. We got all kinds of stuff. Trump was on 60 Minutes, and I didn't see it last night. I heard about it, so we've got a bunch of audio from that we're going to review. And according to Vanity Fair magazine, the magazine to the stars, the magazine to celebs, the magazine celebs essentially own, Trump owned it. Every segment. He owned the interview with Lesley Stahl. She's senior correspondent for 60 Minutes. I mean, senior correspondent, if you get my drift. She's been doing it a long time, meaning she has tons of experience, and Trump dominated the whole thing. You remember we had an interview she did with Jose Rodriguez, CIA terrorist specialist. He handled the enhanced interrogation, i.e. waterboarding, of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Lesley Stahl did that interview. She was stunned. She couldn't believe it when she found out that we fed terrorists inshore. That's horrible. That's stuff they give cancer patients. That's horrible. Oh, yes, we do. They love it. In fact, the Sheikh lost 100 pounds with us. It was the best thing for his health that ever happened to meet us. Why, that's crazy. You give them insure, we can't. Well, the United States doesn't do that. Oh, but we do, said Jose Rodriguez. And she was equally as perplexed last night, could not get over the fact how hostile Trump was to our European Union allies. And it was not hostility. I mean, it's so many teachable moments of this thing. I've read the transcripts. That's how I know what I'm discussing. I haven't heard them, but we're going to listen to these together. But back to Pocahontas now. Jim Messina of the Obama campaign, very disappointed that she would try to steal the news cycle this close to the election. And note that he says they have to win the House and Senate to save America. No, they have to win the House and Senate to transform and change America against the will of the American people. What the Democrats and the American left want to do to America is not what most Americans want America to be. They don't care about that. They are willing to force what they think America should be, America's transformation, on everybody. But thankfully, they still have to win elections. And I still maintain that I don't know when, but somewhere down the road, they're going to realize that winning elections is the lone remaining obstacle to them getting what they want. And at some point, they're going to suggest that elections are not worth it because they don't win them. And they'll come up with some kind of alternative. I know it sounds like a long shot, but don't doubt me. I know these people. But only a Democrat, folks, would think that a report from a scientist saying that she might be 1024th Indian would make their claim of minority status valid. 1,024th Indian. Elizabeth Warren, possibly. That would be 0.09, but that's not even 1/10 of 1%, folks. That's how little Indian heritage Pocahontas has. Now, scientists say that the average European American is 0.18% Native American, 0.18. She is 0.09. She is less Native American than the average European American is. These are New York Times numbers, by the way. Elizabeth Warren, less Native American than the average European American. And let's see what else we have here. Molly Hemingway, favorite part of Warren, possibly being 1,024th Native American, is that her 2020 campaign is rolling it out as if it's not a complete self-own. How do they think this was a good idea? I'll tell you how they think it's a good idea. They think they're nailing Trump with it. They think they're embarrassing Trump. Remember, Trump offered to donate $1 million to Pocahontas' favorite charity if she could prove that she were Native American. So she's come out today, and she's, according to her doctor and scientist and so forth, she's established that she is Native American, and now she's asking Trump to pay off to the Indigenous Peoples Circumcision for America group, well, whatever it is. I forget, Indigenous Peoples Circumcision Information Resource Center, or some such thing. And if Trump gives, Trump's denying that he made the pledge, even though he did. He's flat out denying it, like Bill Clinton. I never had sex with that woman, not a single time ever. And that's what Clinton's doing. You need to go back and look at what I said. I did not say that. At most, Trump owes 1,024th of 1 million. I ran the number. He owes maybe at most $1,000. If he's going to pay a percentage of the $1 million that equals her percentage of Native American, that means he would owe just a little over $1,000 if he wants to pay. Let's go to audio sound bites. We have Elizabeth Warren herself this morning. Let's see. This is on her website. She released a video entitled Elizabeth Warren's Family Story. Isn't that quaint? Elizabeth Warren's Family Story. In one part of the video, Pocahontas here talks to Stanford University professor of genetics, Dr. Carlos Bustamante. And here is a portion of their conversation.
Is Dr. Bustamante in, please?
In the senator's genome, we did find 5 segments of Native American ancestry with very high confidence, where we believe the error rate is less than 1 in 1,000.
Now, the president likes to call my mom a liar. What do the facts say?
The facts suggest that you absolutely have a Native American ancestor in your pedigree.
This isn't just about casual racism, war hoops and tomahawk chops. Native communities have faced discrimination, neglect, and violence for generations. And Trump can say whatever he wants about me, but mocking Native Americans or any group in order to try to get at me, that's not what America stands for.
Okay, now I understand why Jim Messina and the rest of the gang on the left are all in a Twitter here, because she is making it about her on a basically non-story. I mean, this is the election coming up. There isn't a single vote that has anything to do with her. She hasn't even announced for the presidency. In fact, she said just the opposite. She says she's not going to run. So given that, why is she intruding here? I'll tell you, she thinks, like all the others on the left do, they think if they can be the one to destroy Trump, if they can be the one to illustrate that whatever they think of Trump is true, then they will be heroines or heroes. They think they will be loved and adored. They're so Trump focused. They're so Trump obsessed that it is taking them off of their game. Again, reminder, New York Times, Elizabeth Warren is only possibly 1,024th, 0.09% Indian. The average European American is 0.18%. In other words, she is less than half as much Native American as your average European American is. So here's more. This is, again, on her website. She's released this new video entitled Elizabeth Warren's Family Story. In another part of this exciting video, we have a number of university professors talking about whether her Native American heritage came up when they were considering hiring her as a professor. And we've got University of Texas Austin law professor Jay Westbrook, another professor from the same place, Doug Laycock. People's names fascinate me. Doug Laycock. Harvard Law School professor Randy Kennedy. University of Houston law professor John Mixon. And University of Pennsylvania law professor Hank Gutman. All right? And so here they are. Here they
Her
go.
heritage had no bearing on our hiring, period.
I was chairing the committee that year. If ethnicity had been part of the discussion, I would have known about it.
Her name with respect to racial minority hires, no, never.
It's nonsense.
We decided to hire her because she was the best there was on the market.
Wait a minute. The story's not these guys. The story's Harvard. Why isn't there anybody from Harvard? And Harvard is where she used this to get hired as a prof. Let's see. Let me run to the list again here. University of Texas. Oh, there is a Harvard law. I'm sorry, Randy Kennedy. Her name with respect to racial minorities hires, no, never. Well, I don't know if he was the one that did the hiring, but she used it there. This is kind of funny, too. This is CNN's New Day Today. The co-host John Berman, the co-host at Allison Camerata, talking about Warren's video, which she says shows that she does have high cheekbones because she is Native American.
A scientist whose name is Carlos D. Bustamante from Stanford University says she's somewhere between 132nd Native American and 512th Native American.
Well, that puts it to rest.
But it's in there somewhere.
They believe that it's her great-great-great-grandmother was Native American.
Great-great-great-great-grandmother. They got the percentage wrong. It's double the 512th. It's 1024th. Anyway, this, my friends, will not be settled until, of course, we get to the Democrat presidential debates. And I have a story coming up later on the program. In fact, let me. Here we go. CNN itself went out there and did a poll of potential Democrat candidates for president and their popularity. Who people would be most inclined to support today for the Democrat Party nomination. Number one, Joe Biden. 33% of Democrats in a CNN poll today say that Biden is, how old is Biden? Biden is 74, 75. Pocahontas is 71. There isn't anybody in that party under 70. That is their future. That's considered to be their future. Bernie Sanders is second at 13%. Kamala Harris next at 9%. Pocahontas is in fourth place here at 8%. Cory Spartacus Booker at 5%. John Kerry at 5%. Michael Bloomberg at 4%. Beto O'Rourke at 4%. Eric Holder at 3%. Eric Garcetti 2%. And Michael Avenatti, the creepy porn star lawyer. You know, this guy has announced that and I know, I'm going to just tell you something, folks. I know a few people, I'm not making this up. I know a few people on our side who, when Avenatti said that he was considering running for president, got very alarmed and said, look out for this guy. This guy could be the sleeper. There's people on our side. This guy could be the sleeper. This guy could run away with it. And I looked at him. It was on the golf course. I said, you guys, are you sober? What'd you do last night? And they insisted that they were serious. So I bit. I had to ask, why in the world do you think, and this was just 2 or 3 weeks ago, why in the world do you think Avenatti, it might have been a month ago by now, whatever, Avenatti, and you know what they told me? He's their Trump, Rush. That's Michael Avenatti is the Donald Trump of the left. What are you talking about? He's a liar. He's a phony. He's a charlatan. He's a publicity hound. He's got no morals. What I said is, that's what you think of Trump. That's why you think Trump got the nomination. Oh yeah. And they were dead serious. People on our side really thought that Avenatti, because in their minds, Trump is an example of how the entire political system is deteriorating to absolute chaos. I just looked at him and said, I don't know you guys. I really don't know you guys. I cannot. Michael Avenatti, he's a joke. Everybody knows he's a joke. He should have a 1% here. I can't wait to tell the guys on the golf course I was playing with. They'll be stunned. Anyway, the debate. There's going to be a debate. Democrat primary debates, there always are. Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren. Can you just see this? The subject of Pocahontas's Indian heritage will no doubt come up. And Joe Biden will say to the crowd and the TV audience, look, I don't know about DNA, but if you're a real Indian, how come you don't own a Dunkin' Donuts? Because all of them do, and you don't.
The wonder of...
Okay, as a setup to our Lesley Stahl Donald Trump 60 Minutes interview, I want to go back. April 29, 2012, a little over 6 years ago. This is Lesley Stahl interviewing CIA interrogator Jose Rodriguez. She says, so Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was subject to waterboarding, specifically 183 pourings of water, about a half dozen separate sessions. Jose Rodriguez said the average pour lasted 10 seconds. Do we not have soundbite 25? Do we have number 26? Does soundbite number 26 play? Just give it. Okay, well, so much for that. What Jose Rodriguez says in this bite, can I say something about Khalid Sheikh Mohammed? He's the one that was responsible for the death of Danny Pearl, the Wall Street reporter. He slit his throat in front of a camera. I don't know what type of man it takes to cut the throat of somebody in front of you like that, but I can tell you this is an individual who probably didn't have a rat's rear end about having water poured in his face. He never believed for a second you were going to kill him. No, and let me tell you, he would use his fingers to count the number of seconds because he knew that in all likelihood we would stop at 10. This doesn't sound like a person who's afraid of dying. Lesley Stahl says, so what happens? Does he break down? Does he cry? Does he fall apart? No, he gets a good night's sleep. He gets his insurer. By the way, he was very heavy, and when he came to us, he lost 50 pounds. Lesley Stahl. What? His insurer? You mean like people in the hospital who drink that stuff? Yes. Dietary manipulation was part of our dire techniques. He's totally mocking her. Lesley Stahl. So sleep deprivation, dietary manipulation. I mean, this is Orwellian stuff. The U.S. doesn't do that. Jose Rodriguez. Well, we do. It would have been a perfect setup for Lesley Stahl and Donald Trump. We're going to get to that coming out of the break here at the bottom of the hour. Hang on. We'll listen to it together because, like I said, I didn't see it last night. So welcome back, my friends. El Rushbo behind the golden EIB microphone. Great to have you here. Yeah, we're going to be discussing the midterms. The media is now flooding the zone with polling data showing that it's hopeless for Republicans. Just, folks, steel yourselves for this. This is predictable. It was going to happen. And they're also going to say that it's all based around Trump. It's all based on Trump hatred. It's all based on people regretting their vote for Trump, regretting the direction America is going in, all of that. I just saw it happen on CNN. Independent voters switching massively to Democrats in run-up to midterm elections. And if I were you, I'd hold off on believing it. And as we get closer here, I know there's early voting going on. We're going to tackle some of this in an attitudinal way. I can't wait until the week before the election for a full court press because of the early voting that's happening out there. So it's an ongoing effort to try to dispel people of popular myths that the left bands together. You know, I think one of the most effective ways of getting people to think about this How many have you heard people say, this is the most important election of our lives? This, right? It's not. This is not the most important election of our lives. 2016 was. If Hillary had won in 2006, that's what we need to focus. That's the kind of stuff we need to ask people to consider. What would be happening in America right now in the past 2 years if Hillary had won? Who would be running various cabinet posts and agencies? What do we know today that we would not know if Hillary had won? Including names of people and what they've been doing. If you hit people between the eyes with what would America be today if Hillary had won, it's a different way of getting people to focus on the importance of the elections. The drive-bys have their formula, and it's rooted in the desire they have that everybody hate Trump. And so that desire becomes narrative, and then that narrative becomes the result of polling data. And since the media so hates Trump, they want everybody else to. Therefore, the trend is pro-Democrat in the midterms, in their polling data, because people have awakened and realized what a mistake they made voting for Trump. None of that is true, except on the hard left, where it's always been true. There's nothing new about it. And it's not confined to Trump hatred. It's hatred of everybody that isn't them. Like I say, just based on the last 2 weeks of the Kavanaugh hearings, the Democrat Party today, as constant, deserves to lose in the biggest landslide in the history of landslides. The Democrat Party deserves to get bopped for the tactics they have engaged in, for the actions taken by their lunatic and paid supporters. Just outrageous, the kinds of things that they are engaging in. And in a decent world and in a sane society, they would be punished greatly in the midterms. I still hold out hope that they could be. My point is, we will get to all of this as the days unfold in this week and in coming weeks. But here we go with Donald Trump and Lesley Stahl on 60 Minutes. Provided that our sound bites work, I'm not confident now. So the only way to know is to give it a shot. The first one is Lesley Stahl talking to Trump about the supposed hostility that he has created between the European Union allies and us.
Well, I mean, what's an ally? We have wonderful relationships with a lot of people, but nobody treats us much worse than the European Union. The European Union was formed in order to take advantage of us on trade, and that's what they've done.
But this is hostile.
And yet it's not hostile.
It sounds hostile.
You know what's hostile? The way they treat us. We're not hostile.
No, but can't you deal with it?
We've been the stupid country for so many years.
Are you willing to get rid of that Western alliance?
Now, I like NATO. NATO's fine. But you know what? We shouldn't be paying almost the entire cost of NATO to protect Europe. And then on top of that, they take advantage of us on trade. They're not going to do it anymore. They understand that.
Okay.
So once again, we have here the concept, but you're so hostile, the hostility. It sounds so hostile. It sounds so mean. It's confrontational. And of course, in the eyes of the left, we want to be Europe. They want us to be Europe. They want us to be Western socialists. They think still functioning in a democracy, but that's what they want. So we should be forthcoming and tolerant. We should be welcoming. We should be ingratiating ourselves. And this, by the way, this is just Donald Trump keeping a number of promises, which, say what you want, this guy has kept more promises probably than all politicians in history combined. The problem with that is that so many people expect politicians to not keep their promises that I don't know how big a scoring point that it is for Trump, but it does add up to the fact that you can trust him. You can count on him. If he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it or die trying. We don't have the wall yet, but not for lack of trying. And we don't have the full repeal of Obamacare yet, but not for lack of trying. Now, the Democrats are off and running here on a couple of rebirthed issues. I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but all of a sudden, Trump wants to once again take away health insurance from people with pre-existing conditions. Where did this come from? Out of thin air. It came out of thin air. There's no way Trump wants to do this. There's no Republican that wants it. This is the reason the Republicans didn't go for full repeal of Obamacare as pre-existing conditions, which, to get down to brass tacks, pre-existing conditions being covered, it's not even insurance. There's no way you could get insurance if your house catches fire and then go buy insurance. Nobody's going to sell you insurance once the house is on fire or after it's been robbed. So we're not even talking about insurance, but we are, as far as the general public is concerned. So out of nowhere, all of a sudden, Donald Trump and every Republican candidate for the House and the Senate wants to take away health insurance or pre-existing conditions. When did this happen? No Republicans out there saying that. It's sort of like when George Stephanopoulos was interviewing, questioning Mitt Romney in a debate. And he asked him, "Do you think that states should be able to ban contraception?" Romney looked around and said, "What? Nobody's talking about that." Stephanopoulos, "I don't care if anybody's talking about it. I want to know what you think. Should states have the right to ban contraception?" Romney looks around and says, "What? We're not talking about that. No, George, I don't think anybody would even think of this. I don't know. Why are you asking me that? I just want an answer. Quit stalling. Do you think states?" Well, eventually Romney answered it. And it didn't matter what the answer was. It allowed the media. Romney discusses states banning contraception. Well, that's all it took. And the Republican war on women was reborn. And that's what this pre-existing condition garbage. Let me tell you what the real issue is. The real issue that is raising its head out there that the Democrats don't want to talk about is immigration, illegal immigration. That remains the issue that coalesces Republican voters, no matter what other issues they have. That is the issue. It has been poll-driven and tested in terms of being very helpful to Republicans. And, of course, the Democrats don't want to talk about it, interestingly. They're trying to gin up all this stuff about pre-existing conditions. Well, Lesley Stahl here is trying to do the same thing by suggesting that Trump is hostile to our good friends in Europe. You sound so hostile. Why would you want to sound so hostile? It's like when she was talking to Jose Rodriguez. Why would you give him Ensure? That's the stuff they give cancer patients. It's so mean. That's not who we are. You're so hostile. And Trump says, what is hostile? The way they treat us is what's hostile. We're not hostile. She says, yeah, but you can't deal with it without, he says, we have been the stupid country for so many years. And then she finally said, you willing to get rid of the Western Alliance? No, I like NATO. NATO's fine. But you know what? We shouldn't be paying almost the entire cost of NATO. You know what else he said in this interview? Secretary of Defense Mattis came up. Trump said, I know more about NATO than Mattis does. I know more. Mattis, as far as the deep state is concerned, is NATO. Any Army general would be NATO. So Trump just, as Vanity Fair magazine says, and it's a surprising admission, 60 Minutes was outmatched by Trump. The president talked over Lesley Stahl in a relentless blast of rhetoric that seemed more rally than interview. Lesley Stahl will not be happy. I mean, Vanity Fair, they all live for puff pieces in Vanity Fair, particularly news people, because Vanity Fair, you know, is Hollywood star celebrity Mecca magazine. And if you get mentioned in Vanity Fair, you've done massive crossover. You've crossed over from news to entertainment, supposedly doing both. Now, to be dissed by Vanity Fair, that's not a bullet point. That's not a resume enhancer. 60 Minutes aired an interview with Trump, rare for its status as having appeared outside of Fox News or conservative media. Appearing the same weekend as First Lady Melania Trump on 2020, this would seem to represent a new level of media blitzing on the part of an administration that's already seen its he'd get plenty of free promotion during rallies broadcast on cable news. Anyway, they go on to trash Lesley Stahl and trash CBS for letting Trump walk all over them, to just continue to dominate with relentless rhetoric. CBS let Trump get away with the same kind of persona and the same kind of stuff that he says as he says at his rallies. They say Lesley Stahl's interview with Trump was an undeniable get. He'd been scarce on mainstream media since around the time he appeared on tape with Lester Holt at NBC and indicated he'd fired Comey in part due to the Russia investigation. But the interview seemed governed by two motives, both of which played into the hands of a media-savvy president whose refusal to play by typical rules of engagement has been at the center of his rise. You know, you people in the media say all you want. He's been the most media-accessible president you've ever had. This guy will stop and talk to you wherever you're gathered. If he's on the way somewhere and sees you, he stops and talks to you. And he tells you exactly what he thinks. It's not his fault if you can't keep up with him. It's not his fault if you can't play your usual journalist games and dominate him and get away with recharacterizing what he says, looks like, or thinks. Vanity Fair is just admitting it here. They're very, very frustrated that they can't treat Trump successfully the way they treat all other Republicans they want to get rid of.
Hear it.
A minor correction. It's Variety, in which the effort by Lesley Stahl is ripped to shreds, not Vanity Fair. It's 6 and 1 1/2 dozen the other. Variety is not so much a celebrity-focused rag as Vanity Fair is. But they are both left-wing entertainment-oriented, and they do comment on left-wing entertainers, actors, actresses, TV, so-called journalists, and so forth. And it's just a little minor correction. I get them confused occasionally. Here is just another sample from last night. Trump and Lesley Stahl. 60
Is it
minutes.
true, General Mattis said to you, the reason for NATO and the reason for all these alliances is to prevent World War III?
No, it's not true.
What's not
Frankly, I like General Mattis. I think I know more about it than he does. And I know more about it from the standpoint of fairness. That I can tell you.
I'm going to try one more time. Okay.
I know, Leslie, you don't have to try again. I know exactly what you're saying.
Answer my question.
The answer is this. I will always be there with NATO, but they have to pay their way. I'm fully in favor of NATO, but I don't want to be taken advantage of.
I like General Mattis. I think I know more about it than he does. I know more about it from the standpoint of fairness. That I can tell you. He's talking about the fairness of dues, the fairness of all the NATO members paying their own way. He's also talking about people like Angela Merkel making a side deal with Russia and Putin for natural gas shipments exclusively into Germany, ignoring other NATO allies. And you'll notice that 60 Minutes isn't going to Angela Merkel and asking her why she's undermining NATO. Trump already called her out on it for doing this. The Trump supposedly in the pocket of the Russians. But Trump knows what 60 Minutes or Lesley Stahl's trying to do here. That's what they don't get. They can't sneak up on people anymore, particularly Trump. He knows, in fact, you know one thing he said, I don't know if we've got it in the roster coming up. Probably do. But he said something to her that is as honest and true as anything he's ever said. Because I knew Donald Trump. I've known him a long time. I've played golf, and I've known him a long time before he ran for office. And he would ask me about various Democrats, ask me about Obama, and I could tell that sometimes when I told him what I think, he didn't agree, especially when discussions in the media came up. He thought I was maybe just a little bit over the top exaggerating in some of the things I would tell him about my opinions of the media. He said to her, I had no idea, and I'm being really serious with you, Leslie, I had no idea how dishonest the media is until I ran for president. I had no idea. I'm being really serious with you, he said. And I think that's probably true. As a New Yorker and immersed in New York media, where he was a star, when he wasn't running for office He was a local New York star. They made fun of him and they laughed, but he was a big get. He appeared everywhere, and they loved him. And he was great, front cover, back cover of the tabloids, the Daily News, and the Post. When he ran for president, that's when all of the good vibes about Trump, there were some bad things too. I mean, he didn't get universally loved, praised coverage, but it all vanished when he ran. And he was surprised in a way, kind of like McCain was. So when he said to her last night, I had no idea. I'm really telling you, Leslie, I'm really shocked. I was really surprised how dishonest. That's the word he uses instead of biased. And I can tell you that that's true. Now, what else has he learned that he didn't know but thought he knew before he ran for office? And I think a lot about the left, a lot about Democrats, particularly liberal Democrats, that he hadn't thought of in ways you and I did. But now, since he suffered the treatment, he fully gets it. I believe that 1,049 Americans pay more in tax revenue than the bottom 70% Americans pay. 1,049 people pay more in taxes than 70% of the population pays. Details coming up. And we work hard to achieve it each and every day. Great to have you here and great to be with you. Telephone number is 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. And we're going to be getting to calls pretty soon here. Things in the news. The top 3% of U.S. taxpayers paid a majority of income taxes in 2016. Now, those of you who listen to this program, this is not going to be news to you, but as you well know, the Democrats and the media have a popular refrain that no matter how the income tax burden is spread around among tax-paying members of the public, there's an often heard refrain, the rich are not paying their fair share, and therefore we need to raise their rates. We need to increase their tax percentages, their rates, and so forth, and make it fair. And it has gotten to the point now where fairness is so far out the window. It is actually true that the wealthiest 1,049 taxpayers, individuals, pay more in actual tax money, revenue. Forget percentages. They pay more in taxes than the bottom 70% of taxpayers. I misspoke when I said 70% of the population because, of course, not everybody in the population pays income taxes. But of those who do, the top 1,049 taxpayers pay more money than the bottom 70% of taxpayers combined. The top 3% of U.S. taxpayers paid practically 90% of all taxes in 2016. Individual income taxes are the federal government's single biggest revenue source. In fiscal year 2018, which ended September 30th, the individual income tax is expected to bring in $1.7 trillion. That is about half of all federal revenues, and that's according to the Congressional Budget Office. Now, if past statistics can offer any guidance, in 2016, $1.44 trillion in income taxes were paid by 140.9 million taxpayers, reporting a total of $10.2 trillion in adjusted gross income. Bloomberg looked into the 2016 individual returns data in detail for some additional insights. The top 1% paid a greater share of individual income taxes, 37.3%, than the bottom 90%. The bottom 90% comprised 30.5% of taxpayers. The top 1% comprised 37% of taxpayers. So the top 1%, we're not talking all that many people. We're not talking about millions of people here. In other words, and the top 50% of all taxpayers paid 97% of total individual income tax. So in other words, the bottom 50% paid 3%. There isn't much more you can do to cut their taxes. And yet, how often do you hear both parties, politicians running around, and we're going to have middle-class tax cuts. The middle class is paying the burden. It's too bad, but we got to cut middle. There isn't much to cut anymore when it comes to income taxes. Now, which small percentile of taxpayers also paid 3% or more? It's 1,400 taxpayers. The top 0.001%, the top 1/100th of a percent, 1,400 taxpayers. That group alone paid 3.25% of all taxes. 1,049 people is the exact number. 1,400, 48%, a little rounded to 1,400. 1,400 taxpayers paid more than the bottom 70%. In 2001, the bottom 50% paid nearly 5%. The top 1,000th percent paid 2.3%. So the burden of paying taxes is increasing on the rich, not decreasing. It is not true to say they are not paying their fair share. Now, this is as it's supposed to be, by the way, when there are marginal rate tax reductions. When you reduce income tax rates, you generate more tax revenue because people shelter less. They avoid, if you tell people they're going to be able to keep, say, 70 cents of every dollar, as opposed to keeping 40 cents or 50 cents of every dollar, then they'll work much less hard at sheltering it and shielding it, be more inclined to pay it. Plus, you have more taxpayers because all these people end up hiring more people as the economy grows. So the fact that the rich are paying more is actually part and parcel with the theories behind supply-side economics, supply-side tax policy. But the bottom line is, does anybody think it's fair that 1,400 people out of 300 some odd million, is it fair that 1,400 people, 1,400 people, are paying more money in taxes than the bottom 70% combined? And yet we never stop hearing how unfair it is. The rich are not paying their fair share. It's a constant refrain, and I doubt that it's ever going to change, because if you get the votes of all 1,400 people, you're not going to win anything. You need the votes of the people in the bottom 70%. So you need to pander to them. You need to constantly tell them how they're getting ripped off. You need to tell them how people aren't paying their fair share. The left is very, very good at this. And what the left ends up doing is telling people, we're going to punish those rich. We're going to punish them for you. It's not fair. It isn't fair that they have so much more money than yours. It's not fair. They're not paying fair share and their fair share in taxes. We're going to punish. So the bottom 70% go, yeah, baby, punish them. CNN's Chris Cuomo, the son of Mario the Pious, said that he thought Donald Trump looked like he was thinking racist thoughts listening to Kanye West last week. Let me repeat that. Chris Cuomo of CNN, after playing video of Kanye West talking to Trump in the Oval Office, said he didn't care what Kanye said. He wanted to know what racist thoughts were going on in Trump's head. Said, my curiosity wasn't about what came out of Kanye's mouth. My wonder went to what's going on in Trump's head. Let's take a look at him. Here is my educated guess, okay? Other than a warm serotonin flash, a happy hormone, imaginary headlines, black loves Trump, he's blacker than Obama, Cuomo said. What other kind of racist thoughts is Trump maybe having here as Kanye goes on? So who is the racist here? The son of Mario the Pious? who sees race everywhere all the time, even when it's not present, even when he cannot pinpoint it. And how's it an educated guess? So Chris Cuomo, I'm going to take an educated guess here. And when Kanye West is speaking, Trump is thinking, this is great, this is great. This guy's blacker than Obama. This guy's on my side. This guy's going to do wonders for me. How does he know what's going on in Trump's head? They have a crystal ball? But note, he's not racist. This is the kind of thing, I know this is not going to be widely known until I tell people about it. But who these people are and the things they're saying and doing, I know they're going to get votes. I know people are going to support them. It befuddles me, though. Back to the Trump 60 Minutes interview with Lesley Stahl. We were up here at this is a biggie, number 3. This is Trump talking about the necessity of consequences for illegal immigration. Lesley Stahl's question, what about the forced separation of migrant children from their parents?
That was the same as the Obama law. You know, Obama had the same thing.
It was on the books, but he didn't enforce it. You enforced it. You launched the zero tolerance policy to deter families with children.
No, but then everybody decided, and the courts don't want separation. And frankly, when you don't do separate, when you allow the parents to stay together, okay, when you allow that, then what happens is people are going to pour into our country.
So are you going to go back to that?
There have to be consequences, Lesley, for coming into our country illegally. And part of the reason, I have to blame myself, the economy is so strong that everybody wants to come into the United States.
It's my fault, Lesley. I've done such a great job in the economy. Everybody wants to come here. I'll take the blame for it. Now, she misspoke there. This law on Obama certainly did enforce separation. It just didn't get reported because Obama was cool and couldn't do anything wrong. And if it was happening when Obama did it, then there had to be good reasons for it. Remember, we've got a 2-tier system of justice in this country, and we have a 2-tier system of media. Lesley, it was on the books, but he didn't enforce it? What is that? You mean it was on the books, but Obama didn't enforce the law? But Trump is enforcing, but Trump didn't make the law. The Democrats, Lesley Stahl included, attempted to make people think that Donald Trump purposely wrote a law or just enacted one that separated children from their families. It was so horrible. And you wouldn't believe the number of brain-dead people that actually believe this happened. I was watching an episode of Law and Order in Your SUV the other night, and they had a whole premise. Some guy keeping abandoned kids in his basement in a cage was a hero because he was saving these kids after Trump policy had forced them to be abandoned, and he was saving them. And he was just running child sex rings with them, but they tried to make this guy out to be somewhat of a hero because the whole point of the episode was to bash Trump for separating families when it's a law that he inherited. I've explained why the law exists. And it's above and beyond there having to be consequences for coming here illegally. It has to do with the quest for asylum and the fact that where the parents are taken while their cases are decided is not suitable for kids. The kids are put in much better surroundings and centers while their adult parents' cases are being adjudicated. There's nothing. I mean, this is the United States of America. We do not do to kids what these people are trying to tell you the Republican Party does to kids. It's quite the exact opposite. It's just more of a smear that the Democrats and the left have engaged in, and Trump does not back down from it. And even, as I say, Variety magazine was stunned that Trump got away with dominating even with these questions. A couple more before the break. Up next, she says, do you think that climate change is a hoax?
Look, I think something's happening, something's changing, and it'll change back again. I don't think it's a hoax. I think there's probably a difference, but I don't know that it's man-made. I will say this. I don't want to give trillions and trillions of dollars. I don't want to lose millions and millions of jobs. I don't want to be put at a disadvantage.
I wish you could go to Greenland watch these huge chunks of ice just falling into the ocean, raising the sea levels.
And you don't know whether or not that would have happened with or without man. You don't know.
Exactly. And you don't know that it doesn't happen all the time anyway. You don't know when it started. You don't know when it ended. You don't know how natural it might be. But did you hear her say that the chunks of ice falling into the ocean are raising sea levels? I remember one time on this program, way back in the 90s, discussing this. In fact, there are two things. The first, I pointed out because I had read it in a Heritage Foundation action report, that and this was during the Spotted Owl Earth First natural forestation controversy that was all part of the global warming craze in the early 90s. And I pointed out that there were more acreage, there was more acreage of trees, there were more trees in America then, in 1990, than at our founding. The left went batty. They said I was insane, that couldn't possibly be true, that we had come along and we had chopped down trees and we hadn't replaced them to make things out of the trees, and they thought I was just insane. I pointed out, you people misunderstand something. Yeah, we cut down a lot of trees, but you know what? We plant 4 trees. This is the wood industry. They need wood, right? How do you get wood? You have to grow trees. It's not a finite resource. And for every tree that's cut down, 4 new ones are planted. It's part of the policy. Weyerhaeuser is one of the big companies that was doing this. They wouldn't listen to it. That didn't compute. They couldn't begin to fathom that. They couldn't understand. Anybody had seriously claimed more trees, more forested acreage in 1992 than there was in the 1700s. Didn't make sense to them because they don't understand capitalism or economics. Everything is a zero-sum game. If a company came along and chopped down a bunch of trees to build a bunch of houses or whatever, then that was trees that were gone forever. That's why they don't want you cutting down the redwoods. They'll never come back, you know. And by the same token, I remember saying, it's still true today. There was another report just last week that there are more trees, forested acres in America today than there were even 50 years ago. The second one was when I pointed out that falling ice from a glacier or like Greenland is going to raise the sea level. I said it's like ice in a glass melting. I said it's not going to raise the sea levels. I said those ice cubes being jumped into the ocean are not going to raise the... You're crazy. It's absolutely crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. Of course it's going to raise... No, it doesn't. I said, get a glass of ice and pour some water in it. Fill it up. Fill it up, glass and ice. Put as much ice in there as you can and fill it up with water. The ice is going to melt. You tell me, will the glass overflow? It will not. The volume is the volume. And a bunch of ice chunks falling off a glacier are in no way capable of raising sea levels. It's too massive, it's too big, but it's all about... They thought, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not a scientist. You can't see this. Trump is right to say we don't know if it's natural or not, but we sure as hell are not the ones causing it. If somebody gave you the order, okay, you need to make 10% of Greenland melt and have the ice fall into the... What would you do to make that happen? Think about it. What would you do?
Rush is always at work.
Okay, one more soundbite from Trump and Lesley Stahl. Then we're going to get to the phones after the break at the bottom of the hour. This is the pièce de résistance. This is classic. This is Trump saying he never knew how dishonest the media was. And then he decides to put Lesley Stahl in her place.
I never knew how dishonest the media was. I really mean it. I'm not saying that as a soundbite. I never knew how dishonest.
I'm going to change the subject again.
Well, no, but even the way you asked me a question, like about separation.
Yeah.
When I say Obama did it, you don't want to talk about it.
No.
When I say I did it, let's make a big deal.
I'm going to run your answer, but you did it 4 times.
I'm just telling you that you treated me much differently on the subject.
I disagree, but I don't want to have that fight with you.
Hey,
all
it's
right,
okay.
We'll have another fight with you.
Leslie, it's okay. In the meantime, I'm president and you're not.
In the meantime, I'm president and you're not. Reminding her who she is talking to. Now, that's really rude. Why would he say that to her? He didn't have to say that. She knows. Well, his point was that he was not being given even a modicum amount of respect similar to what other presidents have gotten. And he's right about that. These people despise him. They still despise him. And they're always going to, simply because they can't get rid of him. They've thrown everything that they know at Donald Trump. They have tried every maneuver, every strategery, every tactic. They have tried everything that has always worked getting rid of Republicans. They have tried intimidation. They've tried threats. They've tried lies. They've tried reporting a bunch of stuff that isn't true. They have tried intimidating voters. They've done everything that has always made other Republicans back off or cave or sue for peace or what have you. And Donald Trump does not respond to any of it. And I love this, challenging the way she asked him the questions and the way she's not following up on his answers the way she would with others. We'll take a break, and your phone calls are coming up right after this, folks. Hang on. As usual, thank you for your patience. We head back to the phones. Well, we head to the phones, and this is Scott in Oklahoma City. Great to have you here. Hi.
Rush, good to talk to you.
Thank you, sir.
Look, Elizabeth Warren is resurrecting the one-drop rule, an antebellum rule created by Southern plantation owners, Democrats, to say if you have one drop of blood that was black, you're black. This is a grotesque rule. Her percentage is so small.
By the way, excuse me a second, hasn't that rule been adopted by civil rights activists now, that if you have one drop, you can be called black?
Well, that's exactly right. Intersectionality requires quantification.
Yeah.
And so we need to know how much of a percentage oppressor you are versus oppressed. This rule is grotesque, widely discredited, used by the KKK in the 30s, used in Nazi Germany against the Jews. Here she comes again. This is actually a dog whistle to her base. It's not meant for Republicans. It's not meant for conservatives. It's not even about her future run. She needs to tell her base, I'm on board with intersectionality. Look how much of an oppressor I am, and let's find out your percentage of oppressor, too.
Would you define intersectionality? It is a relatively new leftist activist concept that I find most people to whom I mention it have no idea what it is. How would you define it?
Glad to. Thanks for the opportunity to do so.
You're more than welcome. That's why I'm a good host. I have empathy. I know what people are thinking and asking when they listen to a caller say things.
I agree with that. Look, intersectionality comes straight out of Marxism. Marx said that everyone is either an oppressor or oppressed. They're either bourgeois or proletariat. And it's now being adopted to the idea of being able to declare percentages of what you are, how oppressed and how much of an oppressor you are. It's called intersectionality because instead of just being one camp or the other, it's spread across race, gender, sexual preference, and other variables.
Yes, okay, that's it. Intersectionality for the great unwashed. You're talking. You're speaking in language of people formerly educated on Marxism. Many people aren't. That's why it's so successful.
Yes.
Intersectionality is basically something that has been constructed by these Marxists to say that all of these different leftist organizations meet somewhere. They all intersect with each other. The feminists have this strain about them that cohabitates with militant Islamists, that then with illegal immigrants and their activists, and where all of these people intersect is where they unify.
Well, yes, but it also applies to the individual. Because of these, let's say, 5 different dimensions, you are on a different scale on all of those, and they intersect into a single number, quantifiable, that says that this is how much of an oppressor or oppressed you are. This is where you are on the scale.
Of course, this is the root of all this, and this recent white privilege stuff pops up.
Absolutely. Right. So now Elizabeth Warren, because she wants to justify her cultural appropriation of a Harvard professorship has to claim a particular percentage of intersectionality oppression to speak their language.
So she is saying that she is an oppressed. She's oppressed in many ways. She is a woman, therefore she's oppressed by the patriarchy. And now as a 1024th Indian, she is oppressed by the white man.
Which is, again, a resurrection of the one-drop rule. This percentage is so low as to be a joke. If I could say, I took a DNA test about 4 years ago. And, of course, you don't know me, you've never seen me, but believe me, I'm white. However, what I discovered was 0.8% sub-Saharan Africa. Well, that doesn't mean I'm going to Harvard and going to claim a professorship in African American studies. But I have, what is that, almost 8 times more sub-Saharan African black heritage in me than she does Native American.
Wait just a minute. Sub-Saharan is not automatically, quote-unquote, black.
Well, that's right. But in this instance, because we've identified the ancestor...
And the Afrikaners are not black.
I understand what you're saying. I'm referring to black skin.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to specify, because sub-Saharan, this is, some people, what do you mean sub-Saharan? What is this? And then you start talking about the subcontinent, and some people really get confused. You're jumping from India over to sub-Saharan Africa is below the Saharan Desert, which is where most of the population of Africa is. Most of it. There is some north of the Sahara Desert as well. Now, I get your point, and her reason for doing this. All of that notwithstanding, the accuracy of it notwithstanding, the left is pretty upset that she chose this particular time to do this because they think it is totally self-serving. It does not do anything but distract from the midterm elections, which are 3 weeks from tomorrow away. And so there are some people who on the left are claiming that she's selfish and trying to hog what is a lot of light being shined on politics right now because of the elections. I think a lot of it is just rooted in, they have Trump-itis, many of them do, and they live and breathe to expose Trump for whatever they think he is to the point that people abandon him. Anyway, I'm glad you waited, Scott, very much. Thanks so much. John in Tacoma, Washington, you're next. I'm glad you waited, too. Hi.
Oh, thank you. And mega dittos from under the shadow of Mount Rainier, sir.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And just wanted to talk about the movie Gosnell. I heard you on your Thursday or Friday show last week. You were speaking about that movie, so I decided to go check it out.
That would be Friday. I was speaking.
Yes. So I got a moment after work. I raced over to the theater. I watched it over there. But I just wanted to portray how, I mean, it was a very, very powerful movie. And to illustrate that, I just want to share the experience of what happened after the movie. Normally, when you go to a movie theater, you watch a movie and then the credits start rolling and the music's playing and you see people, they start getting up and filing out of the theater and they're talking to each other and stuff. But this did not happen at the end of the movie Gosnell. After the movie was over, the credits began to roll and the music played and after a while all the credits finished and the music stopped. And everybody was still seated there.
Okay, I need to ask you this because there's one thing about this. I made a calculation when I was talking about this on Friday to not mention something about this movie because I did not want to frighten people or deter them from going to see it.
Oh, okay.
But what? I'm not asking you to identify that. But what, if anything, surprised you that you didn't know, or just surprised you, period, even if you think you did know it, about the movie? What did you learn you didn't know?
Well, I didn't know about who Mr. Gosnell was. I was not familiar with the case or anything like that. But that wasn't really the powerful piece about it. What made everybody, if they were all feeling like me and all sitting down and not moving after the movie was over, was it was about an abortion doctor, yes, but this was a movie about a murder trial. But during the murder trial, there were two things that were portrayed, and one was just the barbarity of what happens in those clinics. But even more than that,
what was that? What was the barbarity that would happen in the clinics?
Oh, the barbarity of what happens in an abortion clinic when
in Gosnell's clinic. What happened? What was the?
Oh, that he was allowing babies to be born, and then after they were born, then he would kill them.
Exactly. That is the vast majority. This is why he's called the biggest serial killer in American history. Gosnell killed most of the babies after they were born alive. And he did it by snipping their spinal cords with scissors. Now, I didn't say this on Friday. I didn't say this on Friday about Gosnell or what he did because I didn't want to frighten people away. It's not, as I had to struggle to get this out of you. So it's not something that jumps out at you when you watch the movie. He's right. It is about primarily a trial. And I made the point of saying that Nick Searcy, who's the director, lets the story tell itself. There aren't any exaggerating computer-generated graphics. There's not a lot of special effect, real or computer-generated, in order to shock, because the story tells itself. The numbers of children born alive, killed by this man, is stunning and shocking. Then you realize that the mainstream media never even covered the trial, much less what he had done. They've always done their best to suppress it. It was nearly impossible to get this movie made precisely because of what it revealed. Hollywood doesn't want this movie made. The actors in this movie were risking their future careers by taking roles. People like Nick Searcy, who is an across-the-board actor. He can take the lead, he can take a supporting role, he can take whatever you want. He chose to direct this movie. And all of these people, in one way or another, were risking something major by tackling it and doing it. They couldn't find funding. People that run the GoFundMe pages would not allow any kind of public funding for the production costs. Facebook, Twitter, I don't know specifically which one, but they wouldn't allow any. It was Facebook would not allow any kind of promotion, reference, or fundraising for this at all. It's actually kind of, I don't want to say amazing or miraculous, but it was a lot of hard work and a lot of time to get this movie made. And it was a real challenge for him. I mean, how difficult is it to focus on the fact that this abortionist did his murderous work outside the womb? He did his share of abortions in the womb, but the numbers of born alive that this man murdered, it's just stunning. Everybody thinks late-term abortion is bad. And by the way, this kind of abortion, and it's called an abortion if it's got a term. I'm having a mental block on what the term of this is, but in Illinois and so forth, when a procedure came up, a bill was sponsored to stop this. I think it was Barack Obama who refused to support it. The left will not support any limit whatsoever on whatever is called an abortion. And the thing the left has tried to do in countering this movie is to say, well, if you want more Gosnells, then you go ahead and overturn Roe versus Wade. They tried to say Gosnell was doing what he was doing because women had no other choice. They couldn't go anywhere to get. That's a flat out lie. By the way, Gosnell's clinic, if you will, none of the gear was sterilized. People that were getting sick and infected with it was a pigsty. It was in Philadelphia. But I didn't focus on that on purpose because I didn't want to, I don't want to see it, because you don't see it. That's my point. They don't graphically try to make their point. They focus on the murder trial. But good going out there, John. I'm sure he was getting sweaty and nervous out there. What does Rush want to hear? But he got. It's not that I wanted to hear anything, but that is what I think most people will learn that they didn't know if they go see it.
Doing the work that the mainstream.
Yes, sir, Bob L. Rushbo with half my sizable brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. And we go to Spring, Texas. And this is Susan. It's great to have you with us. Hi.
Thank you, Rush. I am a transplanted Texan. I'm sooner born, sooner bred, and when I die, I'm sooner dead. My great-great-grandmother was a full-blood Cherokee, and if I'm calling via Barbara Streisand.
Okay, wait. When you say you are sooner born and bred, you are from Oklahoma.
Absolutely.
But you say sooner born and bred. People in Rio Linda think you're saying that you'd just as soon be born than dead.
No, I am a proud Oklahoman, and I love Texas too. But my beginning was in Oklahoma, and she said, Pocahontas says her great-great-grandmother was a Cherokee. Well, so was mine. We have, family history, but I'm a 1/16th Cherokee.
Let me ask you a question. You're 1/16, so you are considered, that's a lot. You're considered,
that's a lot.
You're considered Cherokee, right? Okay, so she's her great-great-great, three-time great-great-great-grandmother, and she is 1,024th Indian. Is she enough to become a Cherokee? I mean,
no, I'm
become
not
a member of the tribe?
No, and this is the deal, Rush. My grandfather was 1/4. It was his grandmother. My mother was 1/8. I am 1/16. But if you are not on the Cherokee rolls, they're the only tribe in Oklahoma that doesn't do DNA. If you don't, if you're not on the rolls, and it was shameful.
Okay, so what do you think she's doing? What do you think? What she's doing with this, Susan?
It's Barbara Streisand, Rush. I'm a 16th. I'm 64 years old almost in a few weeks. If she were, but it doesn't matter if your mother or your grandmother, great-grandmother didn't. The Cherokee are the only tribe in Oklahoma. You had to sign the rolls, and it was shameful for a Indian woman to marry a white man, and they didn't. They wouldn't sign up. It was shameful.
What about the high cheekbones business? Is that
that's baloney? I am 1/16th Rush, and I can't be a Cherokee, and I didn't want any of their benefits. I was just kind of proud of it. But if your name is not on the roll, you are not a Cherokee. And
well, it just goes to show. I mean, here you are 1/16th, and you're not eligible, is what you're saying. If I'm hearing you right, she's 1 of 1,024th. It's all about the identity politics with these people. She wants that to say something significant about her. What would that be? I mean, it's all silly. And the people denying that she used this for employment, I think that's the sole reason she did it. To be able to demonstrate she had some minority blood to qualify her to be hired at Harvard.
Rush Limbaugh.
Had an idle thought here. No way, of course, to find this out or document it. But I wonder if the same guy who did the DNA test on Pocahontas is the same guy that did the lie detector test for Dr. Ballsy Ford. Bustamante, or I guess we'll never know this, but you never know how these people on the left coordinate things, folks, and work together. Telephone number is 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.us. I mentioned at the very beginning of the program that the drive-bys were doing everything they can. They are doing everything they can to convince anybody they're reaching that the midterm elections are over. Now, they may be not so sure about the Senate, but the House, they think, is gone. It's Democrats, and it's just a matter of the 3 weeks ahead of us playing out, getting to Election Day and making it official. And the poll that I saw on CNN, it might have been theirs. I'm not sure whose poll it was. Doesn't matter. They're all the same. That independents are breaking for Democrats like nobody forecast, like nobody knew. Independents, and they're interpreting this as meaning that the country has finally had it with Trump, finally fed up with Trump, and of course, by association, the Republicans. And then that poll started focusing on health care and, well, another poll on health care and specifically pre-existing conditions. And the Democrats saw that health care has become a major issue in polling data. So they are reviving the idea that Republicans want to take away everybody's insurance. People who have pre-existing conditions, Republicans want to take it away. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Republicans don't want to take it away. Look, I could, in any other period of the year, make the case that it's not even insurance and it ought not be discussed in terms of health insurance, because insuring people after they're diagnosed, specifically with a terminal disease, whatever you do for them, it's not insurance. But it doesn't matter because we live in an era where health insurance means somebody else pays for it. And if you are not going to luck out and have somebody else pay for it simply because you've already got a disease, then you're going to think it's unfair, and you're going to yell and scream and it's unfair, and a political party or two are going to hear you, and they're going to champion the cause of pre-existing conditions. I'll tell you a little secret. Obamacare set up a separate funding mechanism for pre-existing conditions, and it required people with pre-existing conditions to register in a pool. Because it isn't insurance, it was a separate funding pool. It was a separate way that people were going to be treated or helped if they had pre-existing conditions, but it wasn't technically insurance. And the noteworthy thing about it was how few people signed up for that pool. It was stunning to everybody, and it wasn't as though the pool was not advertised. It was, because it was a huge selling point for any politician pushing Obamacare or government-sponsored health care, because covering people with quote-unquote pre-existing conditions has always been something that a political party cannot afford not to do. They have to do it, even though we're not talking insurance. Well, yeah, it's welfare, but you don't say that because it's going to offend people. They wouldn't be on the receiving end of the payments if it didn't have a health problem. And the fact that it's pre-existing, what is pre-existing? It means you get the disease before you have insurance. Then you get the disease and you want the insurance. In no other walk of life can you do that. You can't set your house on fire and then call State Farm or whoever and buy a homeowner's policy that protects you against fire. They won't sell it to you. You can't have a bunch of stuff stolen from your house and then go buy theft insurance. Nobody will sell it to you. But when it comes to health care, if they don't sell it to you, then all hell breaks loose and they're ripped to shreds. There's no making money insuring people with pre-existing conditions, which then engenders the response, well, that's what's wrong. People profiting from other people being sick, and that just shouldn't be. That's what's wrong. People should be given health care for nothing, and the people should provide it for nothing, for the goodness of their hearts. And that's how it works out. And when you have a political party that promotes that kind of thinking, it's very, very tough to compete with it. So somehow in this polling data, pre-existing conditions has come up, and the Democrats are once again trying to make hay on it by claiming the Republicans want to take it away. In fact, in Pennsylvania, Bob Casey in the Senate race there, Bob Casey has run an ad claiming that the Republican candidate for the Senate wants to deny his own granddaughter medical treatment. She has cancer. She's a single-digit age. She's a baby. And Casey's running an ad saying that the Republican is so anti-people that he wants his own daughter to not be given insurance to treat her. I mean, it's sick. And they've jumped all over Casey. Casey campaign said, we're not going to pull the ad. So the Democrats are running on pre-existing conditions and the fact that Republicans, again, have no hearts. With all the other Trump stuff. And then CNN's poll talks about this massive wave of independence that all of a sudden, according to their poll, is seeing light. Well, from the McClatchy News Washington Bureau, headline, Republicans worry that Trump and his aides have no idea the hell that may await. This article by Anita Kumar uses anonymous interviews with Washington Republicans and Obama, Clinton, and Bush hangers-on. Republicans who support President Trump have grown fearful that the White House is unprepared for the onslaught that may await them in January. If a blue wave succeeds in giving the Democrats control of at least the House of Representatives in the midterm elections in November, Democrats will have the power to subpoena documents and force administration officials to testify about a slew of scandals, including aides using private email for government business, agencies spending taxpayer money at Trump resorts, and sexual assault allegations involving Brett Kavanaugh. 5 Republicans with close ties to the White House said that instead of preparing for what could be a years-long attack by a newly emboldened Democrat-run Congress, Trump aides are wasting time trying to respond to nonstop controversies. Trump tweets in the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. This story says that the White House should be hiring more staff to handle the congressional inquiries, advising administration officials to retain their own lawyers, and researching potential areas of vulnerability, ranging from the death of 4 soldiers in Africa to the sluggish response to Hurricane Maria, according to people who worked for Presidents Clinton, Bush, and Barack Hussein O. Now, at first glance, you would think that this is a story that Trump and his buddies are not aware of the shellacking they're going to take in 3 weeks, that they are blissfully unaware that they're going to lose the House, maybe lose the Senate. This story focuses on what's going to happen if that happens. And to that extent, this story undersells what is going to happen if the Democrats gain control of the House. If the Democrats gain control of the House, every investigation into the deep state and the scandal involving Hillary and her emails and the Steele dossier and the spying on the Trump, all of that stops. No answers will be forthcoming. No punishment to those involved. They will get away with it. And that's just the first thing. Virtually everything Donald Trump has achieved will be rolled back. They will do their best to reinstitute tax increases. You know what? I'm going to prepare a list of things. This might actually make a good, I was talking about this in the first hour, this might make a good illustration of what's going to happen if the Democrats win. It's not just the Democrats gaining control. And by the way, it's not just, this story focuses on how Trump and his buddies are not yet prepared, that they're not aware, that they're not focusing on that the Democrats are going to come investigate Trump and everybody associated with him. That's going to happen, and I can't believe Trump and his people aren't aware of that. I think it's why Trump's doing 4 rallies a week. I think that's why Trump is working harder than any Republican at this moment to keep the Republicans in control of the House and the Senate. The idea Trump doesn't get what's in store if this happens. But specifically, aside from all those things that they're going to aim at Trump, the policy initiatives that have led to this great rebound and recovering economy are going to be brought to a screeching halt, folks. You can say goodbye, Trump. These trade deals that Trump has done, they're going to start working on undoing everything Trump did. At the same time, paralyzing the remaining 2 years of the Trump administration in terms of what he is never going to get another judge confirmed to any court, anywhere. Not a single one. The talk will be, we can't confirm a judge nominated by a guy who may be impeached. We can't confirm a judge nominated by a guy who's not even going to be reelected in 2020. We can't do any of that. In fact, we've got to prepare by unraveling everything this man has done. And they're going to portray this as a dangerous Twilight Zone 2 years of horror for the American people. It's going to be brutal. And you know what? It's going to be what would have happened if Hillary had won. Except if Hillary had won, we wouldn't know over 50% of what we do know about, just say, the deep state, for example, and the efforts that they have made to undermine Trump's election, his campaign, his presidency. Stop and think of all the things we wouldn't even know if Hillary had won. Loretta Lynch would be on the Supreme Court, probably. Lois Lerner might be running the IRS, or take your pick. Koskinen wouldn't go anywhere. Strzok, Lisa Page, McCabe, all these people still be at the FBI. Comey. Well, Hillary might have gotten rid of him. She hated him. She blamed him. But Comey might have been the only sacrificial lamb. Fusion GPS would have become major players in the administration doing opposition research on any opponent to Hillary. And by the way, any opponent to Hillary or the Democrats would be targeted, as Trump was. It's going to be brutal. Let me get back to the audio sound bites. Oh, one more thing about this poll. The headline, Republicans worry Trump and his aides have no idea the hell that may await. What is this may business? It either is or isn't. Are you not sure you're going to win this? The White House is completely unprepared for the onslaught it will face if the House flips, says a former official in the Trump White House. Who would that be, like Omarosa? From a communications perspective, the White House completely unprepared for the onslaught it will face if the House flips. I can't believe there's a soul in there that doesn't know what's coming. A second former Trump advisor said simply the White House is only able to focus on one thing at a time. Well, that's absolute BS. Trump proves that every day. Republicans on Capitol Hill have largely protected the Trump White House from serious investigations, which is not unusual when the White House and Congress are controlled by the same party. What absolute crock. The Republican never-Trumpers have done everything they can to slow walk Trump's achievements. But back, got some audio sound bites I've got to get in here. Here is Leslie Stahl attacking Trump for mocking and mimicking Professor Ballsy Ford.
Had I not made that speech, we would not have won. I was just saying she didn't seem to know anything. No, and you're trying to destroy a life of a man who has been extraordinary.
Why did you have to make fun of her?
I didn't really make fun.
Well, they were laughing.
What I said is the person that we're talking about didn't know the year, the time, the place.
Professor Blasey Ford got before the Senate and was asked, what's the worst moment? And she said, when the two boys laughed at me, at my expense. Do you think you treated her with great respect?
I think so, yeah, I did.
But you seem to be saying that she lied.
You know what? I'm not going to get into it because we won. It doesn't matter. Well, we won.
We won. Jose Rodriguez. Yes, of course, we do. We do feed people insurer, and we did waterboard them. We do. Leslie Stahl, once again, what is this? He didn't show her respect. She's the one that couldn't prove anything. Do we have to go down this road again? She didn't know when. She didn't know where. She didn't know why. The people she named who were there all said they weren't there. She couldn't tell anybody where she went afterwards other than home, and she couldn't tell anybody how she got there or who took her or what she said. And that's all Trump pointed out. He did not mimic her. He did not imitate her. And is it showing her disrespect by pointing out what she doesn't know? This is how the left tries to control speech and thoughts, by castigating anybody who dares tell the truth about one of them. Dr. Ballsy Ford did not have evidence. She did not have corroboration. And Trump is right. If he had not done that at that rally, There's a lot of Americans that would have never known that was the truth about her because the media, people like Leslie Stahl, were not repeating the truth about Balsey Ford. They were not telling the American people she had no evidence, she couldn't remember who, what, when, where, why, and that the 4 people she claimed were there said they weren't, including one of her so-called best friends. The media didn't tell anybody that. That's why they're mad at Trump. Trump did the media's job for them. He did not mock, he did not mimic, imitate, or show disrespect. You see, we're supposed to respect liberal Democrats whenever they allege anything. It doesn't matter, male, female, whatever they allege. We must show respect. We must believe them. Why? Because they're liberal Democrats is why, and they are political tools that have been weaponized, and that's why we are supposed to believe them. Back. Lou Barletta in Pennsylvania is a Republican Senate candidate, and it is his grandson. Is a twin. One of Beretta's daughter's little boys, and it was that little kid that Bob Casey's running commercials saying that Barletta wants to deny his own family insurance coverage. And Barletta, he's responded to it in a video on Twitter. He says it's the most, I forget his descriptive, the worst thing that's ever happened to him in politics. He can't believe it, that he would openly, for political purposes, let his grandson die. And the Casey campaign refuses to take down the ad. Anyway, that's what I was describing earlier. People using direct deposit to receive paychecks. Is that you? Many people, I use a Brinks truck, but many people use direct deposit. You need to be suspicious of any emails received that ask for personal information or payroll login credentials. Look, it's easy to fall for these things because if you're in a hurry and you get an email, anything to do with your finances, if it looks official, you don't want any trouble there. So you react to it. You hit on the link, you respond. Slow down. Whenever you see any kind of an email about your money, about a bank account, just slow down. It is never an emergency requiring instantaneous reaction. There is a new scam being used by cyber thieves. They send out emails making it look like they're from the company you work for, asking you to help out with information with your paychecks. And if you're unsuspecting and unaware, you may fall for this. Security experts refer to this kind of thing as phishing. It's a P-H-I-S-H-I-N-G. It's one of the ways that you fall victim to identity theft. Now, the most impactful way that you can protect yourself against, let's say you reply to that. How do you protect yourself once you've hit on it? The answer is LifeLock. LifeLock identity theft protection, unmatched in the entire industry. They are constantly scanning billions of transactions every day, looking for evidence of something amiss with you and every other member. They are quick to be in touch if they see something, just as quick to offer the services of their restoration team if your online identity ends up being stolen. Now, no one company can prevent all identity theft. Can't make that claim. But nobody is even close to as effective as LifeLock. Call them at 800-440-4833 or LifeLock.com. Use my name when you sign up. 10% off your first year plan and a $25 Amazon gift card. That's LifeLock at 800-440-4833. How are you? Welcome back. Great to have you. Rush Limbaugh. Redefining hip on the radio. See, we've got, let's see, Yeah, I've got two more here. This is one more with Trump and Lesley Stahl on 60 Minutes last night, which, again, Variety magazine is really complaining. Trump owned it, dominated it. Lesley Stahl didn't score a point. And notice what that means, that the purpose of the interview was to destroy Trump. The purpose of the interview, not to learn anything, not to get Trump's perspective, but to expose Trump, which, of course, what all of journalism is, aimed at us. So here is Lesley Stahl. Will you promise, cross your heart and hope to die, that you will not shut down the Mueller investigation so that we can finally get rid of you?
Well, I don't pledge anything, but I will tell you, I have no intention of doing that. I think it's a very unfair investigation because there was no collusion of any kind.
But you won't
There is
pledge?
no collusion. I don't want to pledge. Why should I pledge to you? If I pledge, I'll pledge. I don't have to pledge to you, but I have no intention of doing that.
To date, 32 people have been charged or pled guilty in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. President Trump's campaign chairman, top campaign aide, former national security advisor, and longtime personal attorney are all cooperating in the inquiry the president calls a witch hunt.
Do you really think I'd call Russia to help me with an election? Give me a break. They wouldn't be able to help me at all. Call Russia. It's so ridiculous.
You know what? I'm surprised he's been able to keep his composure about this for as long as he has. Honestly, folks, the idea that the election is illegitimate and that he cheated with Russia and that he was able to keep it such a secret that despite everybody in Washington writing books about it, looking for evidence, there isn't a scintilla of evidence. I would have blown my top on this a long time ago. And this is just clearly misstating. To date, 32 people have been charged. 26 of them are Russians who will never, ever see the inside of a courtroom, who were not charged with anything having to do with Donald Trump. There isn't a single one of these people that's been charged that has anything to do with Trump. And she's including Michael Flynn in this and Manafort. No, there isn't a single charge here. By the way, the drive-bys are very, very depressed because, like Jonathan Turley had a piece warning the left, if you think Mueller is going after obstruction, Turley says, I don't think there is any. I don't think Mueller has found any. I don't think Mueller's even looking at that. Turley's trying to set people up not to be too disappointed when Mueller doesn't deliver goods, at least on the obstruction side. 32 people have been charged or pled guilty in special counsel Robert Mueller's pled guilty. 2? 3? And Manafort and Rick Gates have nothing to do with Trump? And Flynn was just to get rid of the prosecution so he would save his family and save his bank account? As I say, there's a total of, I think, 25 Russians in 2 different charges, and they're bogus. Mueller knows that those Russians are never going to show up and be tried. The charges against them are never going to be tested. And Lesley Stahl knows this, too. That's what makes this all so bogus. Why should I pledge to you? Why should I pledge to you? If I pledge, I'll pledge, but I have to pledge to you that I'm not going to shut down the Mueller. Who the hell are you to tell me what I should and shouldn't do, or to make me promise to you? Drive-bys are not used to this. And this one's unrelated, but this is the first guy that's gotten this right. It's the first guy that's gotten this right in 28 years, 24 years, whatever the number, 26 years. This was Sunday morning on C-SPAN, Washington Journal. The host, Steve Scully, is talking to NBC national political correspondent Steve Kornacki. Kornacki has a new book. It's called The Red and the Blue, the 1990s and the Birth of Political Tribalism. And Scully says to Kornacki, talk about the issue of opinion journalism, which we see on Fox, and PMS, NBC, and CNN.
Roger Ailes in 1996, he had produced Rush Limbaugh's television show in the early 1990s. He saw, though, through Rush Limbaugh, I think, he saw through Rush Limbaugh's radio show and his television show in the 1990s that there was this very large audience on the right that was very dissatisfied with the idea of the mainstream media.
He's the only guy who's actually gotten this right. They always say that Ailes created Limbaugh and Fox News, and then they always try to distance Ailes from having had anything to do with my TV show that Fox News started out of the witch's brew of nothing and so forth. But Kornacki's the first guy to get this timeline and the circle of events correctly. There's some people have gotten close. Some people said, when Fox News started, it was like talk radio on TV. And people wonder where Ailes got that idea, people would say. And I would just stand there and smile, kind of wink and nod. But nobody ever wanted to connect the two because that would mean putting me in the equation. We can't do that. So I don't know what got into Kornacki, NBC News national political correspondent, but he got it right. Let's see. Back to the phones. It's been a while. We go back to Rockford, Illinois. Steve, thank you for waiting, sir. You're next on the EIB network. Hi.
Hello.
Hey.
I was just thinking, you said that a large percentage of Europeans have more blood than she does. I was wondering, have you ever been tested? You might have a higher rating than she does. Then by their rules, you could say anything you wanted.
You may have more blood than
Native American.
Because that's an interesting proposition. Do I have more blood than Elizabeth Warren? I'm not as fair complected as she is, so it could be something to that. No, I've never had my DNA tested, and I've never done a polygraph.
I think DNA tests would be fun.
Yeah, well, the stats are, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the program, and I'm sure I put this at the bottom of the stack. But here, I'm getting to it. The fact is that most Americans have a far greater, here it is, and this is the New York Times. Elizabeth Warren is 1,024th Native American. Scientists say the average European American is 0.18% Native American. She is 0.09. We are, and the average European American has twice the Indian heritage or blood that she does. She's less Native American than the average European American. So your point is, if I went out and got a DNA test and proved that I have more Native American blood coursing through my veins than she does, then I would then be qualified to say anything with impunity because I would be a minority.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Oh, I would love to put it to the test, but I know how the test would end. Somehow the privileges would not be extended to me. I would be accused of jacking around with DNA tests. I would be accused of mocking the heritage of others. I would be attempting to make a mockery of identity politics. And I would said to be hurtful. I would be accused of being hurtful to millions of Americans. I would be accused of causing pain and suffering to millions of Americans with this cheap trick. If I were to do exactly what she did, I would be accused of all that I just pointed out. Anyway, Steve, I appreciate it. El Mucho. Yeah, you know what? Best to take the break now and give us more time on the other side. We've got more people on the phones coming up too, so be patient. We'll be back. When something is manufactured well, you know it. You can tell build quality. You can determine whether the materials used are properly fit, manufactured, look right, feel right. It just works well. Something that's manufactured well works well, and you can tell even before you install it or buy it, whether it's made well or not. Simply Safe home security system fits that description. It was designed by a Harvard engineer out of necessity. He wanted to secure where he lived, but he didn't own the place, like an apartment. And the owner said, you're not putting a security system in here. But the guy had a lot of stuff he wanted to protect, so he invented a wireless security system for his dwelling that did everything the wired or traditional systems did, and for which he wouldn't need to get permission. He refined it. He built a huge team of software engineers, design specialists. When it worked and his little invention worked, he decided to build it out and take it commercial. And he got the people best able to engineer the thing, to software write it, and make sure that it could be built to scale in case massive numbers of people wanted it. You want it to be durable. You want it to be reliable. You want it to be easy to understand. It needs to be mass producible. I mean, for something like this to work, it has to accomplish a lot of things. And that's what the team at SimpliSafe has accomplished. This is a security system that introduced the notion of using Wi-Fi signals in your home to connect all the components instead of wires. That does two things. It allows you to do the installation yourself, which is nothing more than using the crack and peel tape on the back of the sensors and detectors as you put them throughout the house. That's all it is. You put them where you want them. You stick them there on the doors and windows, the walls, wherever you want them. You deploy the motion detectors where you want them. You secure the HD cameras in mounts occasionally if you want them on the ceiling, built into the wall or what have you. But it's all up to you. But the fact that there are no wires means everything. You don't have to build out walls, build them back. You don't have to run wires along baseboard. Just running wires to every sensor in a house for a home security system. Gee, nobody wants to do that, and you don't have to anymore. Even the monthly monitoring service from SimpliSafe, value-oriented, $14.99 a month, 24/7 monitoring. Again, no wires, that's all cellular. And it's month to month. Cancel it if you want, whenever. No penalty. But if you want the cops and fire department to show up when something goes wrong, get it. Go online to simplysafeusa.com. You can see what the system looks like, see what these sensors look like. You can see how they will easily affix to the doors and windows you want to connect. And you'll see how simple it is to operate. If you get the monitoring, you can operate every aspect of this from your phone. And you get 10% off at that website and a 60-day money-back guarantee. That's 2 months. So simplysafeusa.com is the website. That's all you need. Go there, look at it, and get started. Here's Mary in Lock Crescent, Minnesota, as we head back to the phones. Hi.
Hi, I was so afraid you might choose to abort my call when you already had one about the Gosnell movie. But I just wanted to thank you for reminding your audience on Friday about the movie. It was my birthday. And my 13 and 15-year-old girls decided to take me to the opening of the Gosnell movie. And it was just very powerful and moving. And it bothers me when the Gosnell movie is being labeled political. It's political. The people of the particular to remind people, like the very last moments in the movie does, why we need to know about abortion and care and then help others.
Well, I know what people are telling you, though. I'm saying it's political because abortion is. Abortion is a huge political issue. And it's being used in this context to dissuade people from seeing the movie. They're using it. You don't want to get preached to by a bunch of moralist Christians, do you? You don't want to see that movie. But you're saying that the movie itself isn't, and you're right. It's just factual. It's about a murder trial. And it is about some of the horrible, horrendous, inhuman, despicable things this doctor was doing that the drive-by media knew all about and chose not to report. I find it fascinating. 13 and 15-year-old daughters took her. 13 and 15. By the way, it's not an R. It's a what is it? Is it PG-13? I know it's 13. Is it PG? Oh, it's not R and it's not, of course, X. It's doesn't have that. That's amazing. They were able to pull that off, given the subject matter. Let's see. Grab soundbite number Number 10. I want to go out of this. Willie Brown. We had all this polling data today saying that the independents are really, really brave for the Democrats. It's over for the Republicans. Trump better get used to it. Trump better prepare himself. But on Showtime's The Circus Saturday night, John Heilemann talked to Willie Brown, said, you look at where we're heading toward the midterms, what do you see?
I didn't accept the theory that there was a blue wave, and I'm still of that opinion. We were in better shape had we not gone through the horror of the activities. We lost on that issue. We united the Republican Party. They are no longer asleep. They are energized. I am frightened that we may not be able to achieve all of what we were optimistic
Willie
about.
Brown is saying that the Republicans are doing, he's worried about the midterms because of the Kavanaugh fallout. Exactly as I predicted.
This is the
story here, investors.com. U.S. has 3.5 million more registered voters than live adults. How many votes did Hillary win the popular vote by? 3 million. It's interesting, isn't it? And by the way, speaking of Hillary exonerating Bill, well, because Monica was an adult, I didn't get to that day because, frankly, the Clintons are not the front of my memory bank, but we'll do that tomorrow. I owe it to you in on that. You want to hear it, so we'll do it then.